Welcome back to Hardball. New reporting today sheds additional light on how Russian-funded political ads on Facebook were designed to inflame racial tensions during the 2016 election here. According to the Washington Post, the batch of more than 3,000 Russian-bought ads shows a deep understanding of social divides in American society, with some ads promoting African-American rights groups, including Black Lives Matter, and others suggested these same groups pose a rising political threat. Other ads highlighted support for Democrat Hillary Clinton among Muslim women. Well, those ads, bought by fake Kremlin-linked accounts, are now being turned over to members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees who are investigating whether members of Trump's campaign coordinated with the Russian operatives. The Post also notes that the divisive themes seized on by Russian operatives were similar to those that Trump and his supporters pushed on social media and on right-wing websites during the campaign. Also tonight, NBC News reports that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team could begin interviews with current and former Trump aides as early as this week. I'm joined right now by Democratic Congressman Denny of Washington State, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee, and Howard Fineman, who's Global Editorial Director of the Huffington Post and an MSNBC political analyst. Congressman Heck, give us a sense of what you think is the connection between the Russian payment into Facebook and those ads, and any American help given them on how to target those ads.
Well, TBD, Chris. First of all, the idea of being able to identify the issues which would maximize sowing discord and disunity, which after all was their objective, I would imagine that that would be something that the Russian intelligence community could do on their own. But the second part of this is the actual purchase of those ads, the micro-targeting associated with that. It begs the question as to whether or not that didn't require someone who was on the ground and had a better sense of where it is that they should purchase and direct those ads to have the maximum effect.
Well, Howard, you jump in here because it seems to be one thing we noticed about the Trump campaign last year, seems like a million years ago, was the incredibly smart way they went into places like Wisconsin. They targeted certain communities in southeastern Wisconsin. They did the same in Pennsylvania and Michigan. All the states they grabbed and needed to grab. They knew where they were going. Unlike Hillary, they went just where they needed to go and got what they needed and came back with it.
Yes, and that's a combination of the big data approach that they took. Yeah. Don't forget Jared Kushner and various other people bought a lot of big data services in order to target. But in addition,
did they share?
Yeah, in addition to on the ground, you also need a surer sense than I think the Russians could get of how to divide the Democratic Party with wedge issues. This goes back to the Nixon years, and this goes back to that's what a wedge issue is. It's not between you and the other party; it's in the other party. How to get Democrats fighting with each other. That was what was brilliant about what they were doing, and that has a long history in Republican circles.
Well, let's take a look at this. Former Trump advisor and longtime Republican henchman, I think that's a nice word for him, Roger Stone, spoke behind closed doors to staffers of the House Intel Committee today. There he is. He looks like he's proud to be there. Stone, who got his start in the Nixon campaign back in '68, partnered with Paul Manafort in the 80s and 90s, and also worked as a top advisor to Trump during Trump's multiple flirtations with a presidential bid. For example, he joined Trump and his then-girlfriend, the current First Lady, at my 1999 Hardball college tour when Trump was talking of a run back then in 2000. There he is sitting next to Melania Knauss then. Earlier this year, Stone claimed to have a back channel with Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, who released the emails hacked by Russia during the election. And he said they communicated through an intermediary. That's Stone talking. But Stone said he told the committee today he wouldn't reveal the intermediary's name because he's a journalist. Let's hear his defense here.
The reason I am not submitting that name is because the intermediary is a journalist, and our conversation was off the record. I'm an opinion journalist. He's a journalist. I'm not going to burn somebody who I spoke to off the record. If he releases me, if he allows me to release it, I would be happy to give it to the committee. I'm actually going to try to do that.
Well, noting that Stone did not respond to all questions, ranking Democrat Adam Schiff told Reuters today, hopefully he will cooperate in the future. If not, it will be necessary to subpoena him to bring him back to answer those important questions. Congressman Heck, why did this guy get by with calling himself a journalist? Roger Stone is a political henchman, an operative, a whatever, a dirty trickster. He's never written for a newspaper or any media organization I've ever heard of.
So, Chris, you assert
what does he
that
mean by he's an opinion journalist?
Chris, You assert that he got by with self-describing himself that way, as though you know what went on in that room. And by the way, those questions and answers weren't with staffers, they were with members of Congress. He got by with that in front of a group of journalists, your peers. I don't know how he got by with it.
Good point. Touché, sir. Well, let's agree he should not have gotten by with it in front of any group, alive or dead, in fact. Howard, he just caught me there. Why did the journalists at that presser let him get away with calling himself one of them? He's never even pretended to be a journalist.
I talked to Roger Stone after his appearance.
And did you challenge him on his identity?
He didn't attempt to assert to me that he was a journalist.
Okay, well, what do you think he's up to here? What is this thing about claiming that he's protecting his sources because his source has Assange as his source or her source?
I think it's
this intermediate argument.
I think it's possible, but I think we're going to find out who it is for sure, one way or the other. He's either going to be subpoenaed, or if he's telling the truth, that person will come forth. But to me, the news out of there, from what happened inside the room, is that they probed Stone on the question of the Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the headline. That's what I wrote for the Huffington Post, because that's clearly on their mind, the Washington Post story from today, and the whole question of whether those ads are a thread that they can pull to find any evidence of collusion. And they were clearly on that case with Stone. At least that's what Stone told me.
Congressman, last thought, how close are we to finding collusion?
Chris, as I've told you before on this program, this is a long and painstaking process. President Trump seems to be a bit enamored with the NFL of late, so by analogy, I would suggest to you, we're in the second quarter, maybe midway through the second quarter. We got a long way to go. I want to make another point, Chris. Much has been made about this Facebook issue, and it should be. But there's a bigger issue here as well at work. Mr. Stone, in public and in writing other places, has indicated that he just doesn't simply believe or accept that the Russians necessarily hacked our election in 2016. All of this, in spite of the fact that just in the last 10 days, the secretaries of state in 21 states were told that the Russians hacked their voter registration rolls, and Facebook admitted that a considerable amount of ads were purchased by Russians in order to sow discord. We have to get beyond that point with those who are running around with tinfoil hat type theories about what did or did not happen. The Russians hacked our system. It's our job to find out how. It's our job to arm ourselves going into the future, period.
Thank you so much. U.S. Congressman Denny Heck, I accept your challenge to me as well. Thank you, Howard Fineman. Up next, President Trump has spent the last few days doing battle with the NFL, blasting Senator John McCain, taunting North Korea's little rocket man. Is his party about tired of all this bluster? Will his party ever have enough of it? We're going to ask a Republican congressman coming up next. This is Hardball, where the action is.